As a fitness fan obsessed with proteins, to be reborn in a world full of proteins seemed pure happiness to me. Luhan used to be a dead-weight athlete with nothing more than muscles in his head. At the age of 17, he proposed to lift 10 tons, just when he was about to become the strongest being on Earth. Overcoming all humans, the muscles of his body suddenly broke apart, his vision darkened and his consciousness began to fade away. And he thought that if he had more muscles, none of this would be happening. When a mechanical voice suddenly appeared next to his ear, ability of superior level acquired, infinite muscular growth, rare ability acquired, physically ready for battle, special ability acquired, I have Hawk more passive unbreakable ability. Luhan got angry, wondering who whispered to his ear when he should be picking up his boiled chicken breast to take. When he finally saw clearly what was around him, he joined in on a jump, confused because he had clearly been doing a deadweight challenge for only a few moments. Then the passive unbreakable ability was activated, and in the face of the vast meadow and the huge bandage of chickens he had before him, he finally understood what had happened. He must have eaten too much chicken breast, and had ended up in a hell full of chicken resentment. Which explained why so many chickens attacked him. Luhan furiously threw something at the stupid chicken that dared to provoke him. He was already irritated enough not to be able to repose his proteins. When a voice sounded, UK was activated. Detected target, chicken pooping, protein content 68 kilograms. He was surprised that the voice could even tell him the protein content. And he thought it might be a help sent by the fitness ancestor. So he decided to accept it respectfully and enjoy the food. And soon the cockatoo chicken was reduced to nothing more than bones, and he released a satisfaction erupt. But he wondered if his arms had always been so thin, and his pecs also seemed smaller. And even the part of the back that he could only reach in the kindergarten was now easy to touch. Luhan felt that something was going wrong, denying to believe that the fruits of his hard work had faded without more. But when he saw his reflection in the water, he completely collapsed, screaming hysterically, demanding to know where his muscles had gone to stop. And at that moment, the place where he was no longer mattered. Because he had to get rid of his wide body and recover a tall and muscular physique. So he tore a thick tree from the ground with all his strength. Then he threw the trunk to the shoulder and declared that he would start doing squats with trunks, believing that hard work would never betray him. And to increase muscle resistance, he also started doing squats with a jump. However, after 3 months of uninterrupted training, hard work betrayed him, because his muscles did not grow at all. Although fortunately the proteins in this world were more than enough. So he decided to start again as a beginner in physical training. But just then, a huge head appeared behind him, and when he turned around he was completely stunned. Because there was a huge club chicken there. And I couldn't understand why this world insisted on treating him like that. He just wanted to develop strong muscles. Was that really such a huge dream? The attacks of the giant chicken were fast and powerful. And he was afraid to die instantly if he received a single blow. But compared to the attacks of the chicken, Luhan cared much more about how incredible the pectorals of that creature looked. He wondered if beating the wings helped train the muscles of the chest. And he thought that a cable machine should be grown to do chest opening exercises. At first he believed that his muscles would not grow, because he did not have enough strength, and he regretted having forgotten to train the small muscle groups properly. Then the ability of the hawk eye was activated again, revealing that the giant chicken was called Queen and had a protein content of 12,000 kilograms. The voice notified him that eating the chicken's chest would give him the rare ability of incredible muscle recovery. Upon hearing that, he suddenly turned and faced the chicken koan, although everyone thought that muscles developed during exercise. He knew that exercise actually damaged muscle fibers. And in that state, muscle function temporarily decreased and strength decreased. But after a proper nutrition and rest, the damaged fibers became stronger than before. This was known as super recovery. Therefore, the shorter the recovery time, the faster the muscle growth. Which meant that he could escape before his thin body like an anchovy. And to achieve that goal, he was even willing to risk his own life. Because to sculpt pectorals as solid as a statue, He had to repeat the same movement thousands of millions of times. The voice warned that a power superior to combat physics had been detected, so the physical ability ready for battle was deactivated, and obtained the special ability of bone reinforcement. Then he used one of his usual gymnastics techniques with the queen chicken, called row with mangernas. And this time, it was Koen Shiken's turn to feel confused. The next second, his head exploded and the voice warned him that his muscle tolerance had been damaged, and that to restore muscle resistance, it was necessary to reactivate the physical bar already. But he didn't care at all if that voice wanted to restart the skill. He only knew that today he would have enough chicken breast to eat. After eating the chicken breast, he got a rare skill, an incredible muscle recovery. But he still had no idea where that place was or what kind of creatures lived there. And not far away, 3 pairs of eyes looked at him with hunger, with his mouth watered without being able to control it. Because these humanoid monsters had been without smelling meat for a long time. They wondered if the one who had defeated the chicken Koen could actually be that humanoid monster. And although they were afraid, they still wanted to approach and ask. He was paralyzed as he bit the chicken breast, curious to know who those hopeful-looking beings were. The monsters presented themselves as ghouls of the alley mine, and then Hawkeye was activated, showing that a ghoul only contained 6 kilograms of protein. He felt embarrassed and told the fitness ancestor in his heart that he would never treat people as food. The ghouls said that they were looking for the one who had defeated the chicken Quan. He did not expect that the chicken coin would have a owner, and he admitted thoroughly that he was the one who had killed him. Upon hearing that, the 3 ghouls won, because after the death of the strongest chicken queen of Owly Mind, all races began to fight for the territory. But Lu Hanren did not listen at all to the demons. He wondered if such thin legs would break with a single punch. Suddenly, a ghoul leaned over and asked the great chicken killer, Quan, for help. He thought for a moment, and asked them to repeat what they had said, because he had not understood a single word. The ghoul was confused and said that he had already repeated it 9 times. He laughed out loud and said that they had to say it 10 times to make it count as a series. But the ghoul did not understand what a series meant. He explained seriously that if they wanted to succeed in something, they had to try it 10 times. The ghouls had no idea what that meant. Seeing that he did not seem willing to help, they got up sensibly to leave. He apologized, saying that he had been too busy training his muscles to dedicate time to them. And the ghouls understood it, but he told them to take a little chicken breast, since he could not finish it alone. Hearing that, the ghouls happily thanked him, but just when one of them tried to lift the chicken breast, he realized that something was wrong. Because if the ghoul lifted it with that posture, it would undoubtedly hurt the lumbar area on the way home. When he realized this, he quickly stopped the ghoul, and he began to give a passionate talk about all the dangers of lifting weight with an incorrect posture. You almost said goodbye to your spine a moment ago. The ghoul had no idea what it had done wrong, but he still sincerely apologized. Then Louvaret suddenly realized that these ghouls probably didn't even know what it was to lift weight. And in fact, they had never heard that word before. And finally he understood why his bodies were so thin. He remembered something that his teacher had told him in primary school: when you can teach others, it means that you have really learned it. So, when you encounter an obstacle in training, try to teach it to another person, and you will overcome it faster. The 3 ghouls fought to lift the chicken breast. When suddenly the weight in their hands became lighter, he told them that, once he finished eating, he would follow them to his village. But only the next day, because if he did not sleep now, he feared that his muscles would atrophy. The next day, he arrived at the devil's village, and the king of the ghouls welcomed him, calling him Great Warrior. Hawkeye was about to announce the protein content of King Ghoul, but Louvain did not stop. He wondered if King Ghoul was a kind of native chief, judging by his thin limbs and his swollen belly like that of a frog. He knew that King Ghoul lacked exercise, and that he had to be a lover of drink and food in excess. King Ghoul ordered his subordinates to bring all the chicken breasts that remained. And Louvain pointed out that with those weak bodies it would take them a long time to transport them. King Ghoul laughed out loud. He asked if he was worried about those servants. Louvain felt upset instantly. King Ghoul said that the ghouls were the weakest race in the Ali mine. terrible in body-to-body combat, and apart from himself, no one could use skills and they only survived by eating rotten corpses. Lu Red interrupted him and asked him what a skill was. King Gol thought he was joking, but Lu Red clarified that it was not. The king laughed out loud and then ordered the others to drag the 3 ghouls who had brought him back. The 3 ghouls tied were confused about why the prince had summoned them suddenly. The king ordered the others to bring weapons, and he declared coldly that absolute loyalty was required towards those stronger than them. A rule passed down in his race since ancient times, but they had brought back an impostor who only pretended to defeat Conchikin and dared to lie to him. And such a deception had to be paid with his lives. The king roared, "Heavy X2 skill shield," and he hit them with the wooden stick. Louvat asked what he was saying. Clearly he had had time to train, but he had wasted it intimidating the weak. Was this a tradition of the people? The king was surprised, insisting that he had definitely applied force a moment earlier. However, this boy had caught the blow with his own hands. The king decided to show off even more that day. His ability with the heavy shield could increase the weight of the weapon by 2 and 10 times and multiply his strength by 4. Upon hearing that, Louvat was stunned. That skill was totally unfair. The king multiplied by 4 the weight of the 32-kilogram garrote. And he also doubled the force of the blow. But before the horrified eyes of the ghoul, Louvat crushed the garrote with a single blow. The skill surprised him a little. But what surprised him the most was the king's personality. Then he used another of his usual movements in the gym, grabbing the king by the neck with a front-up position with dumbbells. And he asked if he really was so strong as to play with the lives of others. "What is your total in the 3 great lifts?" To act in such an arrogant way, the king asked, confused if the 3 great meant hitting each other 3 times. Louvat explained that the 3 great were the most important exercises to develop muscle, bench press, squats and dead weight. Then he turned to the other ghouls and asked them if they had ever heard of them. Seeing them all disconcerted, Louvat decided to start a strength competition. Moments later, the king asked if he only had to lift this object. They agreed that if Louvat lost, he would become the king's subordinate. Kindly reminded the king to control the abdominal pressure, or otherwise the lumbar area would break. But the king thought maliciously that this idiot would never guess that the heavy shield could be used the other way around. So he used the heavy shield 4 times, and instantly lifted the bar of 200 kilograms with ease. Louvat praised him, telling him that next time he should use a little more accumulated strength, and he told the other ghouls to observe carefully, because if he won, they would also have to learn to do dead weight. The dead weight lifting was an exercise for the entire body that put to the test the maximum strength of the human being. Although it seemed like a movement driven by the back, the lower part of the body contributed with most of the strength. Due to the risk of injuries, the joints of the hip were always heated to ensure movement correctly. The first step in dead weight lifting was to place the feet at shoulder width. The second step was to swell the chest and stabilize the torso using the central area of the back and glutes. The third step consisted in keeping the bar close and lifting it along the throats to the thighs. Using the strength of the feet, the lower part of the body and the entire body sequentially. The fourth step consisted in lifting it to the height of the knees. And at that moment, the king exhaled a malicious smile, secretly activating 4 heavy shields in the bar. While Louvat's speed exploded with force, the bar disappeared, thrown directly to the sky. The demons looked at him with excitement as he sighed, realizing that he had not been able to control his strength. It seemed that he would have to manufacture another bar. At that moment, all the Gauls begged the new king to welcome them, and so Louvat ascended as the new king of the Gauls. The old king, defeated in the battle of the 3 generals, completely obeyed him. During his conversation, it was found out that this place was completely different from his original world. Although the legends say that someone returned once to the original world, he did not want to return with a body of Ankoa, so he postponed the idea. In the world of Risha, the law of the strongest was deeply rooted, and that is why the old king swore loyalty. He took Louvat to the battlefield of the warriors, although only by seeing his bodies could he guess. By seeing the empty training field, He could not help but ask the old king what exactly they had trained. The old king apologized, saying that he lacked knowledge. But even without elite trainers, the team could make one itself, and he would continue training the Gauls. He yelled at all the Gauls who gathered and formed 5 rows. He had heard that the Gauls were despised and forced to live off the work of other monsters. He asked what the weak Gauls really needed. Organization, exploration, skills, speed. No, what they needed were strong bodies. He decided to turn them into adequate soldiers in 3 months. The Gauls wondered if such a short time would be enough, but they were excited to think that they would no longer be despised. Seeing his motivation, he felt satisfied. He ordered everyone to do push-ups. The Gauls did not know very well what it meant to do push-ups. He did a demonstration by lying on the ground and told them to imitate it. The Gauls threw themselves daily to the ground with a curvy posture. Their eyes burned with passion. The push-ups were only the warm-up. He ordered everyone to complete 100 push-ups. 3 hours later, all the Gauls were exhausted. They lay down on the ground, completely exhausted. At that moment, Juan was doing push-ups with a giant rock on his back. Now he had reached 24,800 repetitions. The old king of the Gauls, who was helping him add weight, reminded him that all the Gauls had already collapsed. So he told them to do another 100 push-ups before eating. The Gauls had already done 700 repetitions and felt that they could die if they continued. They even thought that things were better when the Gauls themselves were the leaders. They believed that doing so much was already impressive. With the whole body in pain, they decided that they would sleep for a whole week from the next day. After hearing their complaints, he ordered all the Gauls to get up. And he saw that the session had finally ended. They were about to eat, when Juan Wright shouted to them, "You are weak because your mentality is weak. Pretending that everything is fine when you are despised is unacceptable. In nature, being too weak means death. Continue living like cowards. So when your friends, companions, and family members die, will you continue to flee? Anyone who is like that can leave." It was denied to let that garbage remain, but those who remained and continued to do push-ups trained them to develop bodies strong enough to protect their loved ones. Someone once asked who is the best physical trainer. Is he the one who knows the most about muscles, or the one who trained until he reached the top? Anyone can do those things. These people can get incredible results, but they are not the best trainers. The best trainer is the one who can awaken the will to train in someone who does not have it. Juan Wright roared, pushing himself with a determination to life or death, raising the weak version of his old self. Protect your parents and your loved ones. You can do it, for the rebirth of the tribe and for a new self. The weak Gauls broke their limits over and over again. Doing flexion after flexion, his morale shot up and they never complained again, all thanks to the correct Juan Wright training plan. In a short time, his ability Eye of the Hawk passed from level 1 to level 2. 3 months later, a group of lizard men crossed the dense forest. The explorers confirmed that the village of the Gauls was later. This place would become the first colony of lizard men. Observing from above, Juan Wright was amazed at his extremely developed bone muscles. He screamed, "Bench press equipment, chest up, inhale and contract the abdomen, then activate your braking muscles," aimed at the enemy, and pushed the giant rock forward. Lizard men never expected such an ambush. His leader broke to sweat cold. Surprised by who had done this, Juan Wright laughed. Who else could it be? Of course, it was the reborn Ghoul monsters who had stripped themselves of the title of the weakest. The lizard men were crushed. At the moment, his leader knew that if this continued, they would be annihilated. But if they could capture the enemy leader, things would change. Seeing that overwhelming charisma and that imposing presence, the lizard men leader knew immediately that he had to be the boss. He shouted to the Ghoul King, telling him to stop hiding behind his subordinates, and that he should go out to face him, one-on-one. The old King Ghoul asked Lord Lu how he thought of facing this challenge. At that moment, Juan recalled a memory of when he was little. Once he raised a iguana, a rare species known as the bay crocodile. He waved while begging him to play with it. And the bite force of the bay crocodiles reached 7,700 pounds per square inch, even exceeding 2 tons. However, despite his overwhelming bite force, he could not pierce his well-trained muscles. He had said before, what happens when a pet does not behave well? The bay crocodile broke to sweat cold instantly. And at that moment an idea occurred to him. His figure disappeared from its original place. In an instant, the lizard men leader continued to shout to the old king Gol. When Luanrai grabbed him, he planned to turn the lizard man over his back. Then he remembered the next step. The two had to look directly into each other's eyes, because he had read in the books that, when the animals were young, they had to be instilled with the idea that one was stronger than them in the depths of their mind. So he repeated several times to the leader of the lizard man, "I am stronger than you." The lizard man roared that he could be murdered, but never humiliated. However, the next second, under the overwhelming pressure of Luan, the leader of the lizard men surrendered immediately. He finally accepted defeat and surrendered. Luanrai was excited. What the book taught was completely correct. Meanwhile, not far from the Ali mine, in the White Country of the island of Welling, the lord of the White Country felt honored for having raised such talented people. He ordered them to carry out a level 2 mission, investigate the disappearance of the chicken snake. The three shouted at the unison that they would obey the orders of the count. After they left, the count asked the general if he could really entrust such an important task to these new soldiers. The general told him not to worry. Those soldiers were young, but they were already famous geniuses. Raphael dominated an elegant sword handling with which he played with his enemies. The handling of the sword was wild, and with his forceful sword and brute force he could destroy weapons. Together, not even the dragons dared to appear. They were an unbeatable combination. The count then asked if the soldier in the simple appearance that was behind was also powerful. The general sighed and said that that soldier had no talent for sword handling. The only reason he was there was because the three were friends since childhood, and the general liked the other two geniuses. Soon, the three entered the dense forest. From above, a duende was at the edge, pointing his arrow at Raphael, but at the next moment, Raphael disappeared from his sight, and appeared behind the duende, ending with a single blow. Other goblins appeared at the same time. Hand killed several with each blow. Raphael told him to ensure the safety of Brolog first. Brolog's main priority was to protect himself, but moments later, due to carelessness, a duende approached Brolog. The other two asked him if he was hurt. And in front of Raphael's reproaches, Hand felt ashamed. Brolog did not understand why, although they trained together. He was the only one who was so weak. He did not understand how someone without talent for the sword could become strong. Meanwhile, in the village of the Gowls, Luan Red was training all the Lagarto men. While his leader was about to go crazy, when the tormented Lagarto men left. He told them politely that they could return if they wanted more training. And the Gold athletes also welcomed them. The Lagarto men thought they preferred to die of hunger before returning. He himself was surprised when he saw the Gold athletes for the first time. Normally, training damages the muscle fibers that strengthen during recovery. When the fatigue of the central nervous system accumulates, performance decreases, so it is necessary to reduce the load. On the 9th week, the Gold also felt that their progress was slowing down. At first he thought it was time to reduce the load of training, and wanted to give them a day off. But the next day something miraculous happened. The Gold grew and became stronger. From night to morning, Hapkai proved that they had become Gold athletes with an 8% body fat. Then he realized that the Gold athletes perhaps did not need training to download. And with the Lagarto men out of the game, he agreed to take everyone to eat. The Gold athletes wondered if they could hunt on their own that day. Since the normal Gold had never defeated Klokshek, and had been eating the food he hunted. But now that they had muscles in the chest, they wanted to defeat the Poyo Klug. When they heard this, they felt satisfied because that meant they would have more time to train. Soon, the Gold athletes left completely prepared, but they were agonizing. Why did they have to move in that posture? However, Luan was very satisfied with his unhooked posture. But once his forces flaked, his back bent and the posture collapsed. They were injured like that because they lacked a strong and flexible cartilage that would serve as support. Luan Red thought that hopefully he had someone close like his teacher, whose cartilage was incredibly strong. At night, a lonely figure continued to soften his sword. Since it had allowed a duende to approach Brolog, Repeal and Handed did not stop apologizing to him. Brolog understood that it was because he was too weak and could not gain his confidence, so he swore to become stronger, practicing harder. Even when the others were resting, Repeal suddenly appeared and told him to press his thumb harder, and imagine that he was cutting the wind. Brolog felt embarrassed and asked him if he had woken him up. Raphael smiled and told him that he wanted his dear friend to become stronger. So, although Brolog always trained secretly at night, he pretended not to notice. Then, a hoarse voice resounded, demanding to know what the two of them were doing behind their backs. Brolog explained that they were not doing anything, just practicing. Suddenly, a hand covered his mouth. Repeal asked how it was possible that the man who had put Brolog in danger had the cheek to appear there. Handed responded in a low voice that if they did not rest now, their bodies would react more slowly the next day. He said that Brolog needed to sleep enough to make his skin whiter and softer. Brolog felt worried. He did not understand why his friends fought over those things. At that moment, a strange noise came from the forest. The three quickly prepared for the battle. It was a group of lizard men running towards them. The lizard men were paralyzed for a moment when they saw the three humans. Their leader, soaked in sweat, roared, "Do not pay attention to them. Those who come behind are reaching us." It turned out that they were also running to save their lives. With a huge and dark crowd behind them, they were the former rulers of this place. The rooster chickens. And even these rooster chickens ran in panic, because behind them there was a group of wise protein demons. And without Luan Red realizing it, a new energy pyramid was being done silently. He didn't do much. Luan Red took the Ghoul athletes to hunt rooster chickens. But he had some doubts. Could they really do it? The muscles of the chest of the rooster chickens seemed much larger than theirs. And the Ghoul athletes suspected that they were only dead muscles. Luan Red exploded. "Where did you learn those rude words?" At that moment, a rooster chicken stuttered while chasing an insect. But two trees blocked his path. The rooster chicken got angry and shook hard. And the two trees broke under enormous pressure. The rooster chicken managed to eat the insect. When they saw the scene, the Ghoul athletes became thoughtful. One of them turned towards a big tree and sat between the logs. He exercised his strength with both arms, but the trees only shook slightly. Luan Red told him to rest for 3 minutes and try again. After resting, the Ghoul athlete tried again. This time he was completely prepared, using up to the last drop of strength he had. But Luan Red told the exhausted athlete to stop and come back. Luan Red could not understand that bench press is an effective multi-articular exercise and that the various variations of flexion also train the deep muscles. So, what was exactly what he still lacked? Then Luan Red focused on the chickens cackling and rubbing against each other. His wings were intertwined, as if they were doing resistance to each other. Luan Red finally understood, because the Ghoul athlete's training continued to improve. This had happened above. The Ghoul athlete wondered if his posture was incorrect, stimulating the wrong muscle group. Luan Red told him that that was not the problem. It was because his muscles had gotten used to his training program. So they had to change their routine immediately. Then Luan Red ordered the Ghoul athletes to line up in 5 rows. Behind me is the cable machine. He built it to add variety to his usual training plan. Before starting, he asked everyone to applaud 3 times, from now on, to train the inner chest and defeat the club chickens. They would start with the Kabofua. The Ghoul athletes praised him, saying that his boss always solved his problems. Lord Lu is really the best. Luan Red asked them to shut up to be able to explain to them first that the Kabofua effectively stimulates the inner part of the chest and makes the shape of the chest more defined. The movement must be done correctly to see results. And it is a bit difficult for beginners. The first step was to tilt the torso forward, with slightly flexed knees. The second step consisted in keeping the arms slightly flexed, and hold on to stabilize the torso. The third step consisted in pulling the cables towards the center, slightly pushing the chest outwards, and making similar movements to those of a wing to cross forward. During training, You can adjust the height of the cable and the angle of the torso to work different small muscle groups. But the trunk must remain stable. After explaining to them, he told them to ask if they didn't understand any detail and prepared several stations for them to try it out. The goal athletes immediately fought to be the first. They wanted their pectoral muscles to explode that day. One always found the beginners adorable. After a few days of training, his chest became noticeably bigger. The chickens clucked and looked at them without understanding those perfect pectoral muscles. They made the hearts of the cockatoo chickens accelerate, and a golden light began to shine around them. One Red observed the change confused as more golden light flowed towards his bodies. His feathers became even more vibrant. One Red wondered why the breasts of the chickens were growing again. The goal athletes told Lord Lu that he should not worry. They planned to finish off all the clucked chickens. The two different species were launched against each other. At that moment, One Red's hawk activated again, and the name of the chickens changed to gawkers. They hit the goal athlete flying with a single blow. It turned out that when the chest of a chicken cluck grew, the individual also evolved. If they wanted to prevent a chicken cluck from evolving to gawkers, they had to prevent their chest from growing too much. Meanwhile, the old gawkin had just woken up with the appearance of a lonely widow, but he enjoyed this feeling of freedom. Suddenly, his stomach rumbled with force. He complained that Lord Lu was perfect, except for his incompatible eating habits. During this time, the old Rega had learned to cook fried chicken skin. Because Luan Red never ate chicken skin, so only the old Rega could enjoy this delicious meal. In the forest, the gawker athletes were defeated by the gawkers. They wondered why, despite having trained the chest and deep muscles. As Lord Lu had indicated, they still couldn't win. The goal athletes suspected that their form should be incorrect. Then one shouted that none of them was doing it right. There must have been a fundamental problem to solve. One Red explained one reason: the effort they put. The duration and intensity of training did not come close or far to what those chicken clucks had accumulated throughout their lives. After only a few days of intense training, did they expect to beat them? Wouldn't it be unfair for them? The goal athletes were discouraged. It seems that those pectoral attractives cannot be trained in just 1 or 2 days. But Luan Red told them that there was still a way to win. Think carefully about how you have come this far. During the walk with weight, under his guidance, they maintained a perfect way of hanging. They were exhausted, but their growing willpower kept them moving. Your mental state improved, but you still need constant training. The fact that you have gained a little strength does not mean that you have escaped weakness. You must become stronger to get rid of the title of the weakest. Luan Red told them that on Earth, among the lifters who could lift 500 kilograms, that was the minimum requirement. That solid base was the reason why they could get strength. That is why they had to train the fundamentals, no matter how tired they were. Animated by Luan Red, the goal athletes trained without rest. Then the goals felt it. The strength coming from the ground through their bodies. Luan Red was satisfied. He finally understood that although his chest could not surpass that of them, adding legs and strong glutes could change the result. The goal athletes used the strength of the lower part of their body, and they charged against the gawkers. Luan Red knew that they had trained well lately, so it was time to show everyone the power of effort. The gawkers threw a powerful bofetada, making them fly again. Seeing them go away, Luan Red was confused. Suddenly he realized that they had climbed up there, doing all the way. His legs should be like gelatin at those heights. The goal athletes flying in the air. I thought I had realized too late. The victorious gawkers proudly raised their chicken head. At that moment they realized that there was still a person standing. The gawkers immediately charged against Luan Red. Luan Red stood firm in his place. He raised his hand and used a row with manholes with one arm against the gawkers. At that moment, the gawkers saw their whole life pass before their eyes, and the last image froze in the hand of a human. Then the gawkers became a delicious chicken soup pot. Luan Red told everyone not to blame themselves. Failure is an important part of growth. Today they had to repose proteins. Well, tomorrow, the goals athletes would personally catch them. Luan Red raised the chicken breast in his hand, wishing that everyone could grow and become stronger. Then he told him that he had eaten the thigh that did 300 push-ups before returning. The next day, Luan Right reminded the goal's athletes to remember what he had taught them that day, and that they would stay safe while hunting. The goal's athletes wondered if Lord Luan was going to go with them. Luan Red planned to finish his own training first, before joining them, because he believed that completing daily training was more important than a fight. Luan Red wished them success in developing their muscles. The only drawback was that the resistance band was still too light. If I had known before, I would have also called the old king goal. Today, the goal of the goal athletes was to work together and catch 50 chicken cluck. For safety, they were divided into 3 teams and would use the chest muscles to indicate the danger. After the discussion, the happy and chaotic days of the fitness novates officially began. Meanwhile, the 3 swordsmen finally found the skeleton of the chicken queen. Dead for a long time. Without seeing the skull, Hand assumed that the chicken queen had died instantly by a powerful spell. Brolock wondered if it was a deadly blow that not even the chicken queen could stand. Wouldn't that be the same level as the great magician of the kingdom? And he added, was it really something they could intervene in? Repeal and Hand said to the unison, you don't have to worry. They won't let you get hurt. At that moment, the ground began to tremble suddenly. The 3 swordsmen quickly undressed their swords preparing for the battle. A group of chickens appeared cacareando, followed immediately by a group of goal athletes. They also saw the humans. When they saw unknown creatures, Repeal and Hand rushed to protect Brolock. Brolock felt annoyed and wanted them to stay further away. He didn't need that. The goal athletes also stopped because they had heard that the humans, they were a cruel and bloodthirsty race, and they didn't know how these humans would act. To launch into the fight at that moment was too dangerous. The muscles of the chest of the goal athlete began to vibrate. Brolock wondered what kind of trick they were trying to do. In reality, the goal athletes were trying to call the other 2 teams to reduce the risk. Their pectoral muscles could resonate with those of their teammates to send a signal of reunion. But at the same time, the pectoral muscles of the Caecarian chickens also became larger. The Caecarian chickens evolved once again, until they became gawkers. Brolock knew that the fighting force of the gawkers could rival that of a 2-legged dragon. They charged directly against the goal athletes, the athletes whose chests still vibrated. They felt embarrassed for not having stopped just at that moment. At that moment, the captains of the other 2 teams arrived. They smiled with confidence, saying that they were not late. The goal athletes were ready. This movement was something they had learned from Luan. At that time, he was trying to lift a bar, and Luan Reed reminded him that his posture was not the right one. When you can't train with the right posture, the best thing is to ask someone for help. But if you want to feel your own strength from time to time, what should you do? This was the secret of the culture of the goal athletes, called bunch press sparring. Don't worry about what's behind you. Just move forward. Use up to the last muscle fiber at the end of the range, and let the little gawkers feel the power of their resonant pectoral muscles. The little gawkers saw themselves at a disadvantage for a moment. Just when the athletes were excited because the movement was working, an accident occurred. One of the athletes was left isolated. He murmured that, although he could not find anyone to help him, he continued to thank everyone's affection during that time. His teammate screamed with pain. No, 0.3 seconds is the time that human beings need to judge friendship or hostility. When they meet someone from the first meeting until now, they had spent a total of 486 seconds. This was the moment when the 3 swordsmen fully felt the resonance in the deepest of the muscles of the chest of the goal athlete, feeling completely that inner echo. But unfortunately, that resonance also spread to the chest of the gawkers, and it evolved again. The 3 swordsmen had no idea what that creature was. Its size was already approaching that of a dragon. The legend says that the true dragons existed in antiquity, and that the dragons of those days were obsessed with honor to prevent their descendants from surpassing them. They made an extreme decision dividing their power into 2 lines, forming what is now known as the Dragon Clan and the Quen family. although the creature they had before them was not a true dragon. Its enormous size moved Raphael and Jan dead. He was sure that this would finally win the approval of his teacher. At that moment, Juan felt worried. Although the bodies of the novates develop rapidly during the well-being period, in comparison with the goal athlete, his own chest really felt a bit scarce. But even so, Juan continued to think that the novates were adorable, training with so much dedication. 3 months had passed. At first they were crying, and they even needed instructions step by step to move. Even when they had thoughts of giving up, these vanished instantly. They held on with willpower until now, and not one left alone. Clearly, the ones who were getting stronger were those mocks. However, Juan felt genuinely happy. Today I especially missed my teacher's help. Suddenly, Juan Reed remembered that his teacher had also disappeared at his age, and a thought erupted in his mind. At that moment, an athlete goal rushed to look for Juan. He explained his current situation. If this continued, everyone could die. Juan set off and asked where everyone was. Following the direction pointed by the finger of the athlete goal, the fitness ancestor issued a warning when detecting a power that would exceed the range of combat physical ability. The system would deactivate combat physical ability. Juan Reed burst into rage. Those damn chickens dared to touch my children. He began to charge energy in his legs, and he jumped explosively from where he was, at the same time that Raphael and Jan were rejected step by step, just when the attack of the Gawker's giants was about to crash. The goal athletes unleashed the final secret technique of their method of culturism. They formed a combined support formation, and the attack of the Gawker giant was successfully blocked by the goal athletes, but they could not stand much longer, wishing that Luderin arrived before falling. Soon the formation of the athletes broke. But cruelly, the tragedy always comes. One day, the giant Gawker raised his arm towards them. Just when the attack was about to fall, a powerful blow descended from the sky and crushed the giant Gawker. The goal athletes won. Luderin really didn't arrive late, but when the dust dissipated, in reality it was the old king goal who was there standing. The goal athletes were completely confused. Then a loud thunder rung not very far. As the dust dispersed, the figure of Ludenrid emerged from him. It turns out that he jumped to the wrong place. A large number of giant Gawkers surrounded the old king goal. Handed observed that long-range attack from before. His power was really impressive. An athlete goal told the 3 swordsmen who observed the situation. He is the second strongest of his village of goals, the old king goal. The giants exchanged some kind of signal, and then they directed their gaze towards the old king goal. The old king goal laughed. Did they think he would come here without getting ready? The goal athletes told the old king goal to crush those guys against the ground. The old king goal roared that he had infuriated the whole group. So please get Aaron out. Hurry up and finish them off. The goal athletes felt embarrassed instantly. The old king goal was amazed, because he really hadn't prepared anything. 6 hours earlier, the old king goal was confused because the house was taking so long. And how were they running out of food? He planned to go look for the goal athletes. As the chicken queen was dead, the old king goal thought there would be no danger. But, unexpectedly, something like this happened. The old king goal heard the screams of the goal athletes. He believed that only the Eluderand had the right to intimidate the goal athletes. No one else was qualified to touch his subordinates. The old king goal didn't join the culture training like the others. But even so, his status never decreased. Not because his strength surpassed that of the goal athletes trained, nor because the jungle law had changed. The reason was only one. The old king goal had to continue activating his ability, just to adjust the weight of the plate that Eluderand required. And without realizing it, he had accumulated his heavy shield skill to the maximum level. First he used the heavy shield ×1 cut 10 to lighten the giant rock. Then he lifted the rock and threw it against the giant Gawker. After that, the old king goal used the heavy shield again ×10. And the rock, with 10 times its weight, successfully crushed the giant Gawker. But without prior preparation, this type of attack could only be used once. Seeing the huge giant Gawker, the old king goal felt that they were condemned. Then he was hit by the giant Gawker. The goal athlete saw it. and knew that this time they were really finished. Brolock apologized to the two of us, saying that he always made jokes. Raphael and Handel series told him that they were not joking. Brolock sighed at the end. They still wanted to make fun of him. He thought that maybe, after reincarnating in another world, he would continue to miss these moments. Spend this last moment with his friends. Brolock did not feel alone at all. The goal athletes also intended to use up to the last muscle cell, working with all his strength until he squeezed it to the maximum. They thanked Luke Darren for his guidance during this time. Although the training was extremely hard, it allowed everyone to savor what true strength was. If there is another life, please train them again. The three swordsmen charged against the herd along with the goal athletes. Meanwhile, Luan Wright silently watched the old King Goal who had been knocked down to him. He begged Luke Darren to save his subordinates. The muscles of Luke Handred's chest began to tremble violently. The former fitness detected an emotional overload in the skill, calm under pressure, and cancelled his activation, just when the goal athletes were ready to fight with their lives. The herd suddenly passed running next to them in another direction. The muscles of Luke Handred's chest continued to tremble violently, and the herd brought by the residents gathered here. They were confused, not knowing what was happening, while Luke Handred looked with ardent anger at the gigantic gawkers he had before him. The fitness ancestor confirmed his intention. The pressure of the Commodore would be suspended for 24 hours. Just a few moments ago, when the giant gawker ran towards the distance, the goals immediately prepared to follow him. The frequency of the vibration of the chest indicated that Luke Darren should be there. Roller, however, was confused. Who is Luke Darren? The leader of the squadron bowed to explain that he was his master and his captain. His muscle strands were clearer than anyone else's. In short, his new king goal was Luke Darren. And next to Luke Handred, the giant gawker looked at his chest with voracious hunger. The next moment they launched their attack. Some perfect pectorals could only belong to their bodies. But Luke Handred simply gave a light blow, and the giant's body sank inwards. The next second he flew straight into the sky. The whole herd was shocked. What kind of strength was that in the chest? The next moment his eyes were burning even more, as if they had already claimed Luke Handred's pectorals. And then his enormous bodies disappeared from sight. The next instant, they appeared in the air, turning violently. They had used a fusion technique of the Martian soul. And then his two giant claws stepped on Luke. Luke Handred was crushed against the ground by two gigantic gawkers. Had it worked? The two monsters looked at each other with uncertainty, but the next instant they were paralyzed. As Luke Handred held his giant claws with pure strength, the gigantic gawkers broke in a cold sweat. What kind of divine force was this? Just when Luke Handred was about to come out shot from the ground, the gigantic gawkers raged suddenly, and several giant gawkers more extended their claws. Luke Handred was pressed back underground. Just when they thought they had succeeded, suddenly an explosion occurred, and Luke Handred came out shot loading against one of the giants. The next instant, with a light kick, the giant gawker fell and could not get up. The remaining giant gawkers panicked. The chest of this human was more than they could wish. At that moment, Luke Handred's voice resounded so that the clan could develop their muscles through the formation of the chest. So he used the same chest formation to draw the attention of the giant gawkers. When they heard this, the giant gawkers broke into a cold sweat instantly, full of remorse. This man was not only muscular, he actually had a deeply terrifying mind. But Luke Handred did not want to waste more time talking. He jumped directly into the air and hit the head of a giant gawker with his fist. In an instant, the creature fell to the ground. At that moment, Luke Handred's muscles began to swell violently. And the next second, he put his hands together and balanced them forward, sending countless giant gawkers flying straight to the sky. That fell one after another. The giant gawkers looked at the man they had in front of them with eyes full of terror. If they had another chance, they would never provoke him again. Then Luke Handred suddenly lifted a tree that was next to him and jumped on the bodies of the giants, performing several rotating maneuvers in wood, before throwing his characteristic triceps over the head. brutally hitting the multitude of giants with the wooden stake, leaving another one unconscious. The scene was witnessed by the gal athletes and the three swordsmen. Their faces were paralyzed by the surprise. Even the giant gawkers, similar to dragons, trembled before him. Was it really a kind of semi-beast? Luke Handred's battle had not yet ended, but inside he felt increasingly anxious. He had used the super jump to get there, and now his lower body was weakening. If he surrendered here, he could not face the old King Gal who adjusted his training weights. Without another option, he had to bet everything on one last move to finish off all the giants at once. Immediately ordered the fitness ancestor to release all restrictions. And he shouted, "Press the bank first M. Warning! The lower part of the body can no longer withstand the muscle mass of the upper part. The upper part of the body must immediately enter isolation mode." Just when his muscles were about to collapse, numerous hands appeared on his broad back. He turned around surprised. All gal athletes had arrived without him realizing it. And they smiled at him. He had always supported them. Now it was his turn to support him. At that moment, Juan Wright smiled and let the giants go. He was able to get up and get up. He was able to get up and get up. He was able to get up and get up. He was able to get up and get up. Juan Wright smiled and let the giant gawkers witness the strength of his teacher, and his disciples united. He moved his hand forward, and the giant gawkers collapsed. Immediately after the battle, everyone fell to the ground, exhausted, except Juan Wright, who smiled with satisfaction. Today's training had been perfect. After Juan Wright's group finished off the giant gawkers, he voiced a wide smile. "Revenge is done. Now you can rest in peace. I will miss you." Listening to the nearby gal whispering to each other, "To be honest, before Lord Juan Wright arrived, he was pretty cruel to us. But after he submitted, he's been fine. The last time he even cooked chicken for me. From now on, we have to take good care of his wife and daughters." Before his whispers were finished, Juan Wright suddenly frowned. Without the old Ray gal who adjusted his training weights, now his gaze was directed at the gals who were chatting cheerfully. Those who spoke with great eloquence. They were paralyzed and trembling. When they turned around, pretending not to have heard anything, those ungrateful creatures. Juan. He squeezed his teeth. "Wait for us to come back, and you'll see how I train you." Just then, a figure fell to his side. Juan Wright looked at her confused. Could a gal die and become a ghost again? The old gal came and scratched his head with a, "I'm not dead. I only left everything to Mr. Juan Wright, so I took a nap." His words made the group burst with joy instantly. They threw themselves at him like cannonballs, and the next second they crushed him against the ground, making him scream in pain. Juan Wright could not help but smile. It seemed that he no longer had to worry about losing his weight regulator. The scene changed to the island of Willem, White Nation. The three swordsmen had already been killed. The three swordsmen had already informed the Count of all the events of the front. Without omitting a word, the Count frowned deeply. The gal themselves were not a great threat, but that half-human was dangerous, since he had defeated the Chicken Queen alone, and other hungry tribes lurked in the territory. This was a problem. He sighed deeply. He needed a plan to deal with that man. The young general next to him, confused, he asked, "But where is Block? Were not you three friends who shared the same diaper all day?" The words hit the two like an arrow. The tears sprang instantly. Block. Block was kidnapped by that half-human. Before, Juan Wright had recognized the instant that Block was the perfect material to train, and insisted on taking him. Naturally, they refused and attacked Juan Wright in action, but his attacks were like the punches of some little girls. They refused and attacked Juan Wright in action, but his attacks were like the punches of some little girls. The great sword of Anade, the one he was so proud of. He was caught without effort by Juan Wright, without even turning his head. We could not defeat him. We could only see how Block left with him. Thinking about it made them cry even more. "Master, please, rescue Block from that monster." The Count turned his head surprised. "Strength training. I know little about it, but I have heard that it is a type of dark magic. That soldier is worthy of pity. We cannot start a war so lightly." Then he looked at the general. "Your master is not someone who lets himself be carried away by his personal feelings." Before it ended, a thunderbolt shook the ground. The aura of the general shone like a sword, with his sharp eyes like steel. Dare to provoke me. All units. Get ready for war. The Count gently extended his hand. General. Please. Don't act out of emotion. The general was shocked. Anyone who touches my disciple touches me, and touching me is crossing the line. The Count was paralyzed and took his hand in silence, without saying another word. The general turned around and ordered the two of them to follow her to the Oli mine, where today he would put order in the discipline. Meanwhile, in the training field of the ghouls, one was ready to start a new day of training. As Block joins today, we will begin by reviewing the seats. Block seemed completely lost. He was not even looking at the ground. What is a seat? One Red dedicated a warm smile to the moment. Nothing happens if you don't know it. Come here. I will teach you. The seat is the basis to withstand loads stably and the best movement to strengthen the quadriceps. While he was talking, he put a hand on Block's shoulder. Try to make a seat. Block trembled as he crouched. He stared at him without understanding. What sense does this have? One Red explained patiently. You put on your seatbelts and get up. We train while we lift weights, so your posture should remain stable to avoid injuries. Separate the feet from the width of the hips, the knees aligned with the fingers of the feet. Use the hips and knees to descend, then push with the legs and hips to get back up. Block followed the movements once, and one immediately gave him the good look for his first attempt. Impressive. What did you train before? Block was in a rush. He was very tired. Block was angry. Just a little bit of scrimmage. Then try another seat. One Red took the bar. Keep the trunk firm. Can you lift your hands up to the trapezius? I'm going to put the bar. Keep it firm. This is not light. Block barely felt before the bar fell on his shoulders. The weight was like a mountain. He took all the color off his face and almost collapsed. Don't break the posture. Get up slowly. Block squeezed his teeth, with the red face like fire. Using every gram of strength to get up, One Red immediately took the bar off, and the ghouls that surrounded him exploded in applause and applause. Not bad. I'm not surprised that you practiced the scrimmage much better than the rest of us. One Red looked at Block with evident satisfaction. His strength had already reached the limit, but he still kept a perfect posture, without a doubt. A great material for strength training. My judgment is impeccable. Then he turned to Block. You are training with me because you want to be as strong as your friends, right? Block squeezed his fists. With the burning eyes. I want to be as strong as them. But Luan sighed softly. Unfortunately, you can't be like them. The light in Block's eyes went out instantly. So everyone thinks the same. I know I'm just a normal boy. No matter how hard I try, I can't be up to the level of the geniuses. I can't be up to the level of the geniuses. I can't be up to the level of the geniuses. But even so, thanks for training me. Before it ends. One Red interrupted him. What I want to say is that you will become stronger in another field, so strong that you will never envy his skill with the sword again. So strong that you will never envy his skill with the sword again. In my eyes, you have the best talent. Block raised his head abruptly, with tears in his eyes, and then he broke to cry. You are the first. Apart from my friends, what do you think of me? One Red gave him a pat on the shoulder. Cry burns muscle. And without One Red realizing it, his ability had already advanced silently to level 3. The next morning, One Red brought a lot of chickens. His explanation was simple. We cannot depend on the house forever. The chicken breasts of this mountain will run out sooner or later. The chicken breasts of this mountain will run out sooner or later. As long as there is still food available, let's try to be self-sufficient. The old Ray Gould watched the chickens that were peeing nervously. The old Ray Gould watched the chickens that were peeing nervously. Chickens grow fast and are not difficult to catch. But in the alley mine there are not many monsters that can beat them. Now we are stronger than them. But if they ever evolve, no one except Lord One Red can stop them. One Red's look went cold instantly. I cannot do it. The old Ray Gould swallowed saliva with difficulty. I'm supposed to be able to do it? But when he saw One Red's face, he clearly said, I said no and you will die. He trembled and replied, I. One Red laughed. That is the spirit. Why do you give up? I almost lose faith in you. Soon the training field resounded with screams. While everyone gathered around the bar, concentrating on the strength of their quadriceps. The old Ray Gould sat next to Block, using his ability to adjust the weight. One Red watched the scene with a smile of satisfaction on his face. Teaching beginners was really a pleasure. A thunderous thunder broke the calm of the training field. The expansive wave through the air to the close Goulds. That they rolled everywhere. The bars can explode. The old Ray Gould was equally confused. He had never heard of that. At that moment, a figure stood in front of him, with his eyes fixed on him. So you are the monster that kidnapped my disciple. The old Ray Gould broke to sweat cold, shaking his hands frenetically. Completely misunderstood. I am the one who has been replaced. The general interrupted him with impatience. Less nonsense. He only answers yes or no. Before he could react, his sword fell with a fierce blow. The dust exploded, digging a deep ditch where he was before. But instead of joy, the irritation spread over the general's face, because his sword had been stopped by a single hand. One Red blocked the blow with an arm, with a dark expression. Not even the street dogs dare to interrupt my training. You have claws. Both hearts trembled violently. The general was surprised that a semi-human could block his sword with flesh and bone. One Red looked at the thin line of blood in his atomic arm. This ain't has some skill. In fact, it made me bleed. Just when they remained motionless, two urgent voices called behind his teacher. He was the one who took Block. Repeal and his partner, hand looked at Block in the distance. And the tears sprang instantly. Without Block, they had lost appetite. They could not sleep and lived in misery. The general looked at Block, then One Red, and quickly explained everything that had happened. One raised an eyebrow in Block. She is really your teacher, so you already have a trainer. Is not enough? To put a complete sentence, I just felt that fitness is more interesting than the handling of the sword. One Red interrupted him. To be honest, there is nothing to be ashamed of. Block breathed deeply, as if he was making a big decision. He bowed deeply to the general teacher. I'm sorry. I like fitness more than the handling of the sword. Now, I'm sorry I made you come here, but I have a new teacher. One smiled calmly, suddenly smiled. A moment later, their aura rose again. Since my disciple has chosen his teacher wrong, I must correct it. He threw himself forward, unwrapping his definitive technique. The monk unleashed the sword. One raised his hands. He gazed at the moment, and instantly adopted a cultured posture. The muscles were swollen. The veins became swollen. Victory, but his pupils were contracted by surprise. The leaf left only a scratch. A body so strong should not exist. He turned to Blog. Do you want your body to be like this? Blog felt with strength, with admiration shining in his eyes. The general sighed with impotence. Fine, then I will fight against you. Who will have the right to stay with Blog, which means that his training method is superior. But One Ray denied with his head. You do not understand. Fitness is not a martial art, it is a way to burn and refine the character, she replied then. Catching that Coca-Cola was not to fight, One Ray responded calmly, that was to survive. For the proteins I fight only to survive. The general laughed. Then fitness is only a useless training method. Those words ignited the anger of One Ray at the moment. She made a gesture of contempt with her hand. I know you are angry, but control yourself. What is the use of burning and defying yourself in a few words? Fitness is a garbage at the moment. When she pronounced those words, a blinding light sprang from the body of One Ray. From his interior emerged a higher and stronger figure with sharp muscles, such as the carved steel every centimeter, radiating an explosive power. Only the pressure made everyone suffocate. Their eyes were as sharp as those of a hawk. I will show you what true fitness means. System message. Activated combat mode. Physical, muscular, and highly skilled. The goals form a row and eat melon in silence. Who do you think is stronger, Lord One Ray, or that human woman? A goal was mocked. You do not see the difference in size for Lord One Ray. That woman does not even count as an opponent. Carlo Blood interrupted him. His face was very serious. My teacher is one of the 10 most powerful on this continent. You cannot judge her just by her size. Meanwhile, One Ray looked confused. At the numbers that had that weight 67.2 skeletal muscle 32.7 body fat 9.2%, of body fat 13.6% with so little muscle, how did he manage to hurt me before I could? Find out. The general's voice again sounded. Tell me what kind of martial arts you can practice with your physical training, but before Luan Ray could respond, the space around him twisted violently in the second next she appeared on him, launching a fierce attack. Luan Ray blocked each blow with his arms, which made the general wonder in secret of his monstrous strength, but his attacks did not cease. She continued to press like a subhuman. What are you? I have some advice to give you, he said while attacking, leaving Luan without words. Who talks so much during a fight? You know why? Although your body seems so human, I keep calling you subhuman. Luan Ray responded dryly without showing curiosity. He threw a huge punch from the size of a sandbag towards her, but the general dodged it in the air, and his voice resounded from above. Because the red mana is increasing around you. She twisted in the air. The closer she is to the demonic race, the redder the mana becomes in your combat style. Humans do not have the ability to transform their bodies. With that, she threw herself towards him again. Her impact destroyed the ground instantly, but Luan Ray dodged it using his characteristic movement, the leg press machine, upwards. At the next moment he rolled in the air and landed firmly. His face was full of anger. The bodies change with effort. You don't even know that basic fact. The general shook his head. Only beings like you can use those skills. Humans depend on the scream and the mana. Then his aura exploded once again. The secret technique, sword forest. With that he refound his sword, but at the moment he fit in his place, countless swords materialized around Luan with a cold sweat running through his back. The general's voice resounded again. Humans repose the strength that they lacked before a duel. As soon as it ended, countless shadows of swords rushed towards Luan Ray, facing attacks so dense that he could not avoid them at all. Teaching fitness makes no sense. Now you understand what I wanted to say before. For humans, training the body is garbage. Even if you calculate how to beat me, you will never surpass someone who studies the art of the sword every day. The general looked at the fallen Luan Red as if it were garbage. Luan Red lay on the ground and rose slowly. Your opponents never improve. You know how strong tomorrow will be the person you fight with today. The general smiled with coldness. Why worry about that? As I met him today, I will not let him see the sun tomorrow. His aura rose again, activating his art forest with the sword to talk about. In the second following, Luan Ray jumped. His muscles swelled instantly. He had activated the pose of frontal culture double beavers. The attacks of the general followed, but the face of Luan Red was a pure challenge for those who train their bodies regardless of place or time. We always defeat the version of ourselves from yesterday. Then he unleashed his secret technique, 10 repetitions, which means a series of training of 10 repetitions. As soon as he used it, his body continued to expand, becoming bigger and bigger. Now it's my turn to teach you, old lady. Meanwhile, on the side of the blog, Raphael and Jand arrived. Their faces were full of hesitation and shame. They just wanted to see blog as soon as possible, so they brought their teacher with them without waiting for things to complicate so much. When we meet like this, you must think that we are idiots, right? Blog looked at them without understanding why he was going to hate them for that, but Raphael and Jand insisted that they pressured him by forcing him to leave them. Blog denied with his head. I came here because I wanted to learn fitness. When I finish, I will return. Lord Luan Right has already given his consent. When hearing this, the two revived instantly, leaving Blog confused. Helps the training with the sword to change facial expressions, but they did not care what he thought and asked him what kind of training he was learning to walk. He also said that he wanted to try fitness. Blog denied with his head. It was still new. Then he looked at the old gold king. Can you help me? The old king and gold immediately felt it. Probably can. Blog smiled happily and asked, the two of you remember what our teacher said was the most important thing when we learned the sword for the first time? Raphael raised his arm. Immediately the force of the lower part of the correct body and the exercise that we are learning now is also based on the lower part of the body, specifically in this part the squat that trains the quadriceps. Lord Luanwright said that to start it was better a simple and safe way, but to make it more fun, blog added more weight to the bar. The old Gua who panics starting with so much weight. You really are so brothers that you share a diaper, but blog simply smiled as if he were watching a show and said that he was fine, he would support them from behind. Meanwhile on the side of Luanwei, the general held his punches one after the other. Each blow had a constant rhythm, and what is more important, Luanwei had a loud voice with each punch. 1, 2, 3, 4. What infuriated the general? If you want to hit me, hit me. Why do you warn me? Why do you contain yourself? But Luanwei denied with his head, saying that he was not containing himself at all. Just when the general was about to continue scolding him, the voices of Raphael and Anade came. From one side the general looked confused, and the next moment he blushed. Raphael and Anade had taken off his shirts, leaving his muscles uncovered on his torso. The scene made the warrior Annie feel embarrassed and excited at the same time. She wanted to look away, but she simply could not. What kind of training is that, and why is it so pleasant to the eye? The old Ghost King replied. They are failed squats. It is a physical training movement, but doing so will cause them injuries. At that moment the general no longer had the arrogance of before. I think I can add fitness to my training routine. When hearing this, Luan came out of the combat mode but still expressed his curiosity. Then in your opinion, what is fitness exactly? The general replied, of course it is burning the sticky passion and seeing people soaked in sweat really enjoying. And so the two came to a mutual understanding through fitness. Soon they all started their trip to the White Nation, but the eyes of Luan Schweitz fixed on the muscles of the forearm of the general. Your forearm, the arm is very strong. What exercise do you do for it? The general said he did not train intentionally. He simply softened his sword every day, which also counted as exercise. But I have a question for you. You teach methods of training so powerful to others and you do not expect anything in return. It really seems good to you. Luan Weiss made a gesture with the hand saying that he did not care at all. The more people do exercise, the better. This comment left the general puzzled. Normally when people have something good they hide it because they are afraid that others will learn it, but Luansha seemed completely indifferent. The more people do exercise, the more gyms there will be everywhere, and if people investigate more types of exercises, the training will be even more effective. If they ever had the opportunity, one expected to take fitness culture also to Renya. The general thought for a moment. It seems that you are even more interesting than I imagined. I admire you. When we meet with the count later, I will ask you to grant you a wish. The way to the White Nation was long after last night. The group set up a temporary camp nearby. At that moment Brolock approached Luan Schweitz with serious expression. Lord Luan Schweitz, there is something that perhaps the White Nation does not know has an extremely severe discrimination. There not only belittles other races but even magicians and non-believers are only kind to those of their own species, especially with swordsmen. The young like me, we are a little better, but I fear that you and the gold athletes could feel uncomfortable there. Luan Schweitz already felt without a doubt it was an important problem. Brolock suggested waiting a while before visiting her, but Luan Schweitz completely ignored him and headed directly to a nearby restaurant. The next moment, he began to compete with the horse for food by putting the pienzo in the mouth with spoons. All those who were around were shocked. It was really an uncivilized child eating pienzo intended for cattle, but Luan Schweitz seemed really moved, as if he was tasting something exquisite. That rough and dry texture, this was the raw form of oats, those carbohydrates so pure only the horses ate them. That was a real problem. The people of the White Nation observed him eat with delight, and was surprised again. The monsters were really monsters. Even their eating habits lacked rules. If a monster heard that, he would be sad. The king Gold approached and scolded the two, then took out his own food. I have improved your rations a little. Try it. By seeing the food that the monster offered them, the two were completely angry, but they could not resist the smell. At the next moment they gave a bite and chewed slowly, then both were paralyzed by the surprise a sweet flavor mixed with a pleasant spicy spread through their mouths, and the aroma of the cooked food awoke something in the deepest of their hearts. That familiar flavor was the flavor of the kitchen of his mother. The two immediately gave the king Gold a thumbs up. The king Gold responded proudly, saying that once they were closer, I would share the recipe so they should stop saying discriminatory things about monsters. At that moment Lu Wangshui approached General Lewei, who asked him curiously what he needed. Remember that you said before that you would help me fulfill a wish. The General Lu Wang felt. Lu Wangshui opened his palm, revealing a small handful of I think I have decided that I want this grain. General Lewei did not find it strange. I saw you raising chickens before. It is to feed them, of course not. It is for us to eat it. General Lu Wang broke to sweat cold, although that is his request to make me think for animals to eat me. It is a bit embarrassing that as Lord Wanwei, the captain of the Gold Squad, approached. Is a high-ranking woman, how can you waste such a great reward in thinking for cattle? When hearing this, Wanwei was visibly annoyed by the general. When they add they are not wrong, any request you make I will grant it to you. This level of treatment is not for anyone. I can replace your stores for wooden cabins, and I can dress you in well-fitting and elegant adventure suits, and our provisions already have a lot of chicken breasts. Go, is not that your favorite protein? Luan fluttered the scenes. It seems that I have to educate you a little. Eating only proteins is really harmful, especially for the liver. But if you ingest the right amount of carbohydrates, your body produces glucose that helps your muscles release an explosive power. The oats as a complex carbohydrate, it digests slowly and keeps you satiated for longer. Is low in calories and rich in nutrients, and on Earth it was even called the queen of cereals. So, tell me what reward could be better for the body than oats? When hearing this, the General Lu Wang group was silent, unable to understand a single word the words he said, but the goals were shaking with emotion. So that's it, from now on we will eat oats. We want muscles. Exaggerated muscles. This whole scene fell into the eyes of the soldiers of the White Nation that surrounded them. They tightened their teeth. So this is the secret that allows that semi-human to fight. In general, when I can't stand the idea that humans lose against monsters, we also eat it. As soon as Lu Wang finished talking, Brock gave the waiter a great drink, and Repeal drank saliva. Behind him, even Brock is eating it. Let's try it too. And in the second next, a crowd gathered around the dining room. Goals that looked like hungry ghosts revived soldiers who refused to lose against the monsters, and of course the horse that was eating quietly before being interrupted, and now seemed completely confused. But as soon as the food touched their tongues, everyone spit it out. This is repugnant. Repeal swore that he had never tried anything so horrible in his entire life. But while he was cleaning his mouth, his eyes fixed on Brock in front of him. Brock was still chewing bite after bite of grain. Brock spit it out. Even the goals vomited it. This tastes terrible. But Brock smiled happily. I think it tastes good, dry. Crunchy, I like it. Nguyen Hui observed everything, did not expect that Brock had talent, not even to eat. He should be someone who would get fat quickly, which in some way made Lu Wang feel challenged. At that moment General Lu Wang approached. He still did not understand a single word of the previous explanation of Wan Weiss, but seeing how satisfied they all seemed, I decided actively to persuade the Count to agree to his petition. When he heard this, Wan Weiss cheered. In general, you are a good person. The next day the Lu Hans Weiss group arrived soon to the White Nation. Throughout the trip Brock had a serious expression. Lord Luan, as I told him yesterday, this is the White Nation, the most obsessed land with the discrimination of the entire continent. As soon as they entered through the gates, the goals were surrounded and observed as circus animals. The talks of the citizens of the White Nation did not stop the ears of the captain of the Goals Squad to rattle. What irritated him without ceasing at that moment, Wan there put a great hand on his shoulder. Why are you so autonite? Teach them some poses. What do you mean? He asked. The captain, completely lost. Luan Wei explained to him, it is because you have incredible physicals, that is why they look at you closely. The goals understood it suddenly. That is why Brock. On the one hand, he was left Speechless, definitely not that. At the next moment the goals breathed deeply, and then flexed proudly his exaggerated pectoral muscles towards the multitude of the white nation. The citizens of the white nation were completely amazed. They had no idea why those monsters were so happy. Soon they arrived at the palace. General Li Huan had already informed of everything the white nation, with the count sitting at the top, asked coldly, "So your plan is to leave after teaching fitness, correct?" Wan Wei felt, "And his payment is, I think, for winning." Wan Wei again felt. He got up and said, "It is not, I think, for winning that oats, edible oats cups, but for the count." The scene seemed extremely rude to him. A race so inferior. "Only I let you enter the city, monsters." With respect to the general, if she had not asked me, he would have kept the guards at the door. The general bowed immediately to thank the count for his generosity. At the next moment the furious roar of the count filled the hall. "So it is better that you behave. Do not cause problems once you have finished teaching that supposed fitness. I left my city." Wan Wei squeezed his fist. "No problem, count. When he finishes his work he can come to train with me. I will train myself." But the count completely ignored him and indicated to them with a gesture that they left. Once they left, the count's face twisted in anger. "These people are going through the line." At the next moment he took off on his throne. The general wins. His popularity is too strong. He was concerned about how to regain the trust of the people. A true blessing of heaven. I have been fighting for so long, and now the answer falls from the sky. Guards called to the mercenary body. Google General Li Huan. His guests have accidentally become his weakness today. Soon General Li Huan took Wan Wei to the training field of the soldiers. "All stop today. We are going to have a special training session." This is the special instructor invited by General Li Huan, the king of the ghouls. Luan Shua. The soldiers were stunned. "The king ghoul is not that a monster?" "Why not? A monster is taught. I know that they do not like it, but disobeying orders is violating the military law. Think about it well." Before acting, Wan Wei took a step forward. "Hello everyone, I am your special physical instructor. My name is Luan Wei, but do not satisfy me in your eyes. Everyone get in position of flexions right now." The soldiers were paralyzed. "Flexions? What is that?" Luan Wei fell to the ground. "Makosos." Everyone to the ground. The ghouls fell to the ground behind him without a doubt. However, many soldiers of the white nation doubted. A few. They slowly went down to see this Luan Wei and frowned. "Why did not you have thrown yourself yet? What are you waiting for?" Someone whispered. "What joke is this? We are really obeying a monster." The instructor immediately responded that during training the orders of a monster were equivalent to those of the general. That was the rule there. But the man made a gesture with his hand to subtract importance. "Instructor, you also think the same? Do you really think that the words of a monster are the same as those of the general?" When hearing this, the general remained silent, and seeing that the man was screaming at those who were next to him, "Get up, all of you! Are really going to obey a monster? You have no human pride." Luan Wei also got up with a face full of anger, asking what he believed the man was doing. The man made a gesture with his hand with indifference. "There are too many problems. We will not follow the orders of a monster. Second, the physical training that teaches is useless. Why should we abandon the practical handling of the sword to learn another type of training?" While he spoke, his hand rested on the handle of his sword, and at the next moment, he took off his sword. In third place, and most importantly, humans will not bow to a monster without education. Fearing that Wan Soya exploded, the old king ghoul advanced to block it. "I can take care of this." Pointed to the blog. "First problem, let the blog train you, so you will listen to a human instructor, not a monster. Second, you have never learned fitness. How do you know it is worse than the handling of the sword that the monsters and humans send each one to a representative and fight? What do you think? And third, we are not a monster without education." The expression of the old king ghoul became cold. "Only you will know after the fight. Disgusting humans." Then looked at the ghouls already at the same time. The ghouls shouted their war cry at the same time. When seeing this, Luan Wei felt relieved. "These guys really did not disappoint me. Well, I accept your proposal, instructor. You are also agree to hear this. The instructor finally nodded his head. Once he nodded, the man immediately took a step forward. I will represent the humans. What monster you will send as soon as it ends. A goal came out in large numbers. The man was happy in secret. These idiots continue to think that I am only a pathetic apprentice. Let me show you why. The mercenary body go personally hired by the count is feared throughout the country. The next moment he stepped on the ground with force and jumped on the goal. He dies. Disgusting monster. But the goal was not scared at all. He folded his arm and unleashed the definitive movement of martial arts, the frontal press with a hand to an arm. A strong thunder was heard when the man boldly used his face to receive the punch. The next moment the impact threw him directly to the sky. When he fell to the ground, his face barely looked like that of a human. Wanwei scolded. The goal, you have used too much force. You have put so strong just to show off, and if you kill him, the goal responded docilely with a soft I'm sorry. When I heard that I was there, he made an uncomfortable gesture with his hand. It is not entirely your fault. I did not expect him to be so brave. But he is useless. Then the Ankois went towards the soldiers of the White Nation. Since your representative has lost, follow my training obediently. At that moment the man supposedly unconsciously curved his lips. Sword technique. As soon as he spoke, a powerful energy broke out of his body and the wind around him raged. The next moment he jumped forward with his long sword, cutting directly towards the goal. He had ahead. The goal felt the danger. He became prey to panic and completely forgot to dodge it. At that critical moment, the old walking activated 10 times more. The strong impact. The man was instantly crushed on the ground, unable to move, and one Swiss bounced immediately forward, his palm slightly pressed towards the chest of the man. At the exact moment his palm touched the chest, the man came out fired like a cannonball. He crashed against the wall by the apparently soft blow of Wanwei's. The huge impact made that his whole body twisted uncontrollably. At that moment the General Li Wang arrived. At the edge of the training field, he entered excited, wondering how the wise training of Luan was going and how many pectoral muscles could there be, but all he saw were soldiers, perfectly dressed, looking at the front and whispering loudly. The previous scene had terrified them. When showing such power with pure strength, they were sure that magic had been used. In the middle of the battle, at the next moment the General Li Wang nailed his sword to the ground and the strong impact instantly attracted everyone's attention. The instructor and Luan Shui rushed to go as soon as they saw it. The General Li Wang looked at the instructor with displeasure. I do not understand what is happening. Inform me. The instructor immediately turned away. Some recruits believe that they should not follow the orders of a monster, so both sides sent representatives to fight in battle. Our soldier lost the fight and some accused the ghouls of cheating to use magic during the duel. When they heard this, the General Li Wang turned to Wanwei. You did not use magic in the duel, true? Wanwei denied with his head. Not even magic. The General Li Wang looked again at the instructor. Li Wang Shui said he had not done it, and a cold sweat ran through the instructor's face. In reality, I also believe that he did not use magic. But before it ended, someone interrupted him. The count had arrived. He passed by and I heard something incredible. General, I really believe what those monsters say. I should not support the people of the White Nation or pretend to stand by those lower creatures. The General Li Wang broke into a cold sweat. Of course I am on the side of the people of the White Nation, but the expression of the count became even colder. However you choose to believe the nonsense of a monster. At that moment Luan Shua took a step forward. You are here for your training session. First get off that horse before I could get closer. The old ball king dragged him back. Luan Shua, you have misinterpreted it. Come after me. After Luan Shua retreated, the count looked again at General Li Wang. You know that I value you a lot, true? The General Li Wang felt it. I understand. The count's face cooled down once again. But the guests you brought have caused problems to our nation, damaging the apprentices, their young bodies and minds, and creating conflict and chaos. As ruler of this land, I cannot pass this high. His look hardened by the present. I declare that in General Wang will assume all responsibility. He is sentenced to 2 years in exile. When he hears this, the expression of Wang instantly turned cold. The count was terrified by his reaction. She will not try to kill me, true. What a fear at that moment. Innumerable voices rose behind. Generally Count cannot do this. Let us execute those monsters instead. Please retire your order. The noise flooded your ears. At the next moment he smiled and turned to the crowd. Shut up, all of you dare to disobey the Count's order. You are still worthy of being soldiers who protect this nation, but the soldiers were still dissatisfied. We would never disobey the Count, but doing this to the general is really. Before I could finish, the General Li Wang interrupted him. He thought they were only mocks who only knew how to discriminate, but they even dare to answer the Count. It seems that they have grown a bit, but I must withdraw my support only so the plants can grow on their own then. He turned to the Count and bowed. Thanks, my lord. Then take his indulgence as an excuse to rest and recover before returning to the nation. The Count felt without expression, although inside he trembled. His fulminant gaze from a moment ago. He had almost taken his life away. Then he looked at Luan Sui. I'm sorry, and Sui, I brought you here, but I can't stay to take care of you until the end. Luan Sui smiled. Nothing happens anyway. We can't always train strictly according to the schedule in general. When he turned back to the Count that these monsters continue teaching for the next 3 months, the Count felt I will do it. When he heard that the general finally relaxed. Well, at least the bases have been set with so many unpredictable variables. What kind of changes will these seeds experience? I am curious. It will be fascinating when he returns. Thinking about this, suddenly he laughed at the soldiers. They were stunned. The general had gone crazy for having been exiled. Soon the night came out of the walls of the White Nation. A lonely figure appeared. It was the mercenary Gogo who had previously provoked the ghouls, now walking with a relaxed smile. If jobs like this are repeated more often, I will no longer need to hunt goblins. Since Bao likes flowers, maybe he should open a floristry. The idea made him smile, imagining a sweet future. Then he opened the watch in his pocket that he was holding in his hand. Wife, daughter, wait a little longer. Dad will return home soon. But the man had no idea that his wife and daughter would never wait for him again. The fire had already devoured the entire town. The villagers who were lucky enough not to die burned had become zombies while the flames continued to attack the few survivors. The whole scene was reflected in the eyes of the man who was at the top of the mountain, while observing a sickly smile and twisted. He drew on his face, then turned around, and his expression changed to a pleasant surprise. How long without seeing you, and look at our homeland receives us with so much warmth. His twisted smile became even darker than before, but the next instant he showed a polite face again and extended his hand like a knight. My princess, grant me this dance, the girl called. The lich looked at him in silence for a moment, and then placed his hand on his side of the cliff. 2 figures began to dance their elegant dance, descending towards the hell that was under an elegant melody, falling into a burning hell. A few moments ago the Count ordered the general exile of Lu for 2 years, and in an eye-opening and closing, they escorted her out of the city's gates. Her disciples presented themselves to say goodbye to her. What actually made her quite happy, at least her care for those mocks had not been in vain. Then she looked at Brolog, who was by her side, disconcerted, because he was there. Brolog explained to him quickly that since Mr. Luanwei did not have class that day, he had planned to leave the city to gather some materials, and thought he could take part of the way. When he heard this, Luan felt thoughtful. In that case he could go home for a while, but Brolog doubted the Count would really allow such a thing. Luan made a gesture with his hand so that he would not worry while that old man did not find out. Everything would go well, as he was to wait for my master. Your mind works very fast. Then I will trust in you, master. Brolog's voice had become stronger lately. Luan even gave him a pat on the arm when he realized that he had also become more robust. If you make yourself stronger, you could probably take me home. As your wife, Brolog broke to sweat. Cold master, you are no longer than 60 years old. I have just turned 20. Is not this a little excessive? The second following, Luan burst with fury. Repeal and Ars hastened to protect Brolog, allowing him to flee at full speed. Meanwhile, a lonely Limo crawled stealthily through the ground without knowing anything about his imminent fate. Suddenly, a ghoul appeared behind him. What made the limo shake? The muscles of the ghoul's arms swelled instantly, and the next moment he picked up the limo against his chest as if trying to absorb it in his own body, and defenseless whale floated in the air. Soon another ghoul arrived holding another limo. This trip was clearly a great success. His faces were full of smiles of satisfaction. Every time Lord Luhan Shui does those strange things that we do not understand is to show us new movements. Let's go back quickly. At that moment Luan arrived with his group. He looked confused at the limo and the arms of the ghoul. Why did you run out to hunt limos? When he heard the question of Luan, the ghoul answered him seriously. You see, of course they have caught slims because they needed them. Luan felt even more confused. The limos were practically the most useless creatures for what they could serve, but the ghoul did not know that he planned to be Lord Luan Shua, so he suggested to Luan that he ask the general directly. Soon the two arrived at the place where Luan Wei was. When Luan Shui saw Brolock approaching, he was happy, but he was also puzzled. Why this boy approached so naturally, why he did not use the archer posture. Meanwhile, the ghouls that surrounded them flexed their pecs, surrounding the slims in a closed circle. Luan observed the scene, puzzled. What are you planning to do exactly with these limos? Luan Shui explained that he had been observing the apprentices lately, and he had realized that his physical and strength training was too inefficient in this situation. The only effective method was to use the ED system as a help, but the training equipment was too scarce, so he was manufacturing his own. Luan suddenly felt enlightened too. Like when he makes straw dolls to train with the sword. True, Luan Shui denied with his head. It is not like practicing with swords. Then he looked at the ghouls he had behind and told them to bring me a limo. Shortly after they brought him a limo and placed it in front of him. At the next moment Luan Shui put his hand directly on the limo's soft body, without a doubt, instantly removing the stone nucleus that was inside it. Although the round core of the center is removed, a limo is regenerated in a few days, but while the point of regeneration disappears, holes are formed in the center. Luan Shui hit one of those holes with force. The limos had an elasticity and an incredibly strong contraction force. We have to take advantage of its great contraction force before they shrink completely. We put our hands inside to give them shape. Once the shape is fixed, the resistance band is complete. It may sound strange, Luan, but the resistance bands can train many different muscle groups. The resistance levels change according to the color, so you can combine each band with the necessary force. They are good for rehabilitation. The heats all very versatile. Just then, while Luan Shua spoke with enthusiasm, Luan did not interrupt. When he looked at her, Luan apologized for the interruption, but he again made a gesture with his hand. The truth is that I never understood you, so I always suspected that your passion for training and taking action was only one act, but you always receive us with genuine warmth as an educator. But by allowing the white nation to be filled with discrimination, I feel that I have failed, and I am ashamed. So all this time I only blindly followed the imprudent orders of the Count. But you are different from me. You can bring change to this country. When hearing the key word, Luan Shui closed his wise eyes. Changed to the next second, he proudly inflated his exaggerated pectoral muscles. I am the best at making changes. I can change myself. But the whole team. Luan made a gesture with his hand. Not that kind of change. I mean this guy. While he was talking, the soldiers of the white nation took a step forward. His previous one had disappeared. Smiling at the goals, they said, monster instructor, let's see what you have. And it is not because we have lost. It is worth. But please do not make us do those strange general flexions. Luan turned to him. Luan Shui, I can trust you to all my apprentices. Luan Shua broke to sweat cold, but a moment later he squeezed his fist. Of course, welcome to the team, new members. Change of scene. After receiving the report, the Count rode quickly towards the village in flames, ordered everyone to disassemble, and began to give instructions for the mission. Our enemies are zombies. Do not die. The most terrifying thing about them is that if they bite you, you become one of them, so do not let them bite you. Watch every corner. Then raised his sword. All the troops ahead gave the order, and An endless number of soldiers were thrown into the sea of flames. Soon a fierce fight broke out with the zombies observed from the shadows by the hidden brain. The man made an impatient gesture to wait here. If we appear now, General Lewin could join the battle. Biedolman grinned and stalled around him. The man got angry. A second later, he kicked Biedolman away. I have told you. No, stupid Chucho. The mistreated Biedolman cried twice with pain but got up and went back to walk towards the man. The man sighed softly, caressing his head. Wait a little more, Biedolman. Those zombies are no more than essential pieces back in the White Nation training field. One was satisfied with the soldiers, as I said before. They all have a limited resistance every month, so they must train only the muscles they really need. When he finished, the instructor took a step forward. Everyone understood to warm up with the resistance bands and prepare for the bank press. The next moment, the words of the instructor were interrupted by Luan Wei. Forget the bank press today. We will do mixed training. The instructor was completely confused. Mixed training? What the hell is that? Mixed training is a method based on consistency, variety, high intensity, and functional movements. Train 6 areas uniformly: resistance, force, explosive power, speed, coordination, and flexibility. In summary, a perfect hexagonal warrior with load of work in group. The companions develop cohesion and also a healthy competition. Since we barely know each other now, nothing works better. The old king will announce now your groups. After confirming it, cheer up and start today's training as soon as it ends. Victor's pectoral thronators exploded. Soon the goals and the soldiers of the White Nation immersed themselves in a passionate training, and once again the old king Goal served as a weight adjuster of Luhan's judge. At that moment, a sudden emission interrupted Luhan's judge's training. He frowned at the instructor. What is that repetitive sound that is heard lately on the radio? Zombies outside the city. The instructor explained to him that the count had to lead the troops himself. When the enemy is too strong, they send constant signals requesting reinforcements, but although Luhan's judge asked him, he barely seemed to listen. Group 4, that is for you. Your core is weak. Lower the weight. The scene changes next to the count. At that moment, the count had already led his troops to the enemy's main base. This time we annihilate them completely and recover the peace of our nation. His words caused rages of jubilation throughout the battlefield. With the impulse at his high point, the count raised his long sword again. At the attack, the soldiers charged against the horde of zombies. Without a doubt, today they would recover the peace for their homeland. The count watched with satisfaction until his secretary asked him, "Is this not too aggressive? What do you know?" You expected the count. The zombies have been involved. They have no strategy or technique. Use strength and ingenuity, and you will easily annihilate them while watching their troops fight fiercely down. The count gave another order, that no one should reduce the speed. Continue fighting until everyone has disappeared. Meanwhile, another squadron entered the rear of the horde of zombies. The man surrounded by soldiers was not scared at all. In fact, he smiled. He clapped his fingers slightly. The next moment, Bedouin man fell from the sky and landed in front of everyone. Lord Banda caressed Bedouin man's head with a malicious smile and then pointed to the soldiers who charged against him so that he would bite them until they were killed. But Dolman flinched at the soldiers as soon as he finished speaking. In an instant, the soldiers surrounding Lord Band were completely annihilated. At that moment, someone arrived with a brilliant sword. It was the count. His face was full of anger, while he was softening his sword against Banven looked at him and smiled. How long without seeing you? Count took out with indifference a cane from his waist and blocked the furious blow with ease. What happened did not need so much. That blow was pathetic. The count did not get angry. Your mouth is still the same as before. You still do not know how to use the sword techniques. With a quick movement, the count took the cane away from Ben. The man retreated smoothly. I never studied sword techniques, so of course I don't know how to use them. And he took several flasks between his legs, but I have studied these. As soon as he finished talking, Ben stabbed himself with a thick, long and hard poison-covered needle in his small body. In an eye opening and closing, his body began to mutate. To see how Ben was quickly swollen in front of his eyes, the count was filled with terror. Although he did not want to believe it, the body and expansion of Ban made his heart sink. Crazy. Did you really participate in experiments with humans? The smile of Ban was the only answer he gave.